Hi everyone, I'm Helen. I'm a product manager at the late stage startup in Southeast Asia. In Southeast Asia, there's a 32% female representation in the tech workforce. And as compared to the global average of 27%, we are already leading. However, much has to be done to increase female representation in tech, and especially at the leadership levels. Today, I have with me Julie Martin, who is the head of product at Stashaway. She was also nominated to be one of the top 65 fintech product leaders in Singapore. She has accomplished all of this and she's only barely 30. So very, very impressive, and I'm super excited to have her on my channel today. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks, Elaine. Hi, everyone.
Female product leader, it's pretty rare in Singapore, or rather in Southeast Asia. Do you think gender has benefited you or disadvantaged you in your career trajectory?
I've been in companies where I was 90%, male, right? Like very fintech companies when I was in London, for instance. Then I moved to e-commerce, fashion, love into where it was 90% female. So, quite different. And then at the moment, I currently work for Stashaway, and which is pretty balanced in terms of male-female representation, at least in the product team. On the developer side, it's still, very male dominated. It's very difficult to say because sometimes, right, you do feel like it's, you're in a different environment, and the atmosphere really changes, right? When it's like a very female environment, different kind of like support system, right? Compared to like a more like mixed or very male one. But I would say as a product manager and as a tech side, I've never had any issue, positive or negatively, at least in my career because of, being a female in that, right? I felt that as a product manager, right, what matters is how you talk to stakeholders and the fact that you understand and you're able to, sit down with a developer and, understand what the issue is and what to do and, what we're going to implement, etc. As long as you can grasp those concepts, right? Whether you're like a female or a male doesn't really matter, I think, as much. Where I've seen issues or didn't feel, as comfortable were more like I would say on the business side than on the tech side, right? If you have more like external things, or when I was in finance, for instance, that was very different, right? Like very kind of very male-oriented kind of industries. So I feel actually very comfortable in the tech companies, whether it's on the female side or on the male side, because we all speak the same language at the end, and it really helps. So the only thing is that sometimes, and it's being a female and it also being French or having done different experiences, you can bring a different angle and a different point of view, right, on some topics. So product management is really all about empathy, for instance, and really feeling, for your end customers or your end users. And sometimes, if in the room, right, you have only, for instance, males, right, they're not gonna think maybe about different customers. They can be female, so you can help also bringing that diversity in terms of opinions.
It's great to hear that your experience thus far in tech has been quite positive generally. You mentioned that you sometimes in some teams it's very male dominated. Some teams that you've worked in, for example in Love Bonito, it is still very, very much more female oriented, and then now in Stashaway it's balanced. So I was wondering, in these three contexts, how would you tailor the way that you align with your stakeholders or communicate with them? Would you say that there is a difference? And if so, what are some of these differences?
Just on the team bonding, etc. If it's only female, like Love Bonito, for instance, in terms of environment, maybe you can. It's not the same type of connection. I would say you can build not the same types of conversation at all. Also, you have when you team bonding with a female only team versus like a male or like a mixed team.
When you reach a lot of that level of seniority, a lot of times there could be a greater proportion of males. How do you get that kind of support that you would need to accelerate in your career as a female product leader?
When you arrive in a company, right, nobody knows what you have done. You might have a resume, you might not even have a reputation, right? So you need to, I would say, show by example, right? So if they see you're strong, if they see you have your data, right? Like as a product manager, always have your data.
In what way?
Like you want to give an opinion or like help to take a decision or mention why we're doing this instead of this. If you don't have your data, right, if you don't have some codes from customers and things like this, we are not going to take you seriously. So I would say female or not, that's how you build your reputation, right? And you need to go potentially even a bit harder on that, right? Like really be backed and confident and strong about your inputs. If you're new, if you're a bit younger, and if maybe if you're a female, right, in a room full of men, how I give again this confidence, right, in work environment, meetings, work setups, is just to be confident that I've done all the research I need, checked all the data, and to be able to give those views, right? Usually wouldn't take I wouldn't speak or if I'm not, backed by the data. And this gives me the confidence to say, maybe we should do this, or maybe you should do this, and give my opinions. When you start to do this and take decision, and people see, that you know what you're talking about, then naturally they will come to you, right? And they will ask you, what do you think of this? Or, oh, you have a question on this, go ask Julie, right? Because she has been doing some work on that, right? And then naturally, people start to see you as, the person who is responsible for this.
Yeah.
So it doesn't arrive from one day or another where you come and build, and it just takes a bit of time to build. And really, you need to build relation and really show a genuine interest and how to help in different sectors, and how your team can also help.
That's very, very important point, I think. Data is data, right? These are the cold hard facts. And if you have that as your backing and you can use it to align with your stakeholders or to kind of drive a certain point, then definitely you have a lot of weight in the words that you say. What are some other tips that you've used other than data as a backing to give you that kind of confidence?
In general, right, to always make sure you have it's kind of the painful part of the product manager is the documentation, right? Have your documentation, your backlogs, everything clean and clear and documented. Because if anyone asks you, why are you doing this, right? Instead of being like, oh, why am I doing this, blah, blah, blah. So you get your thing, it's there, it's ready. Say, here is my backlog, here's a list of stuff I have to do, here's a ranking for each category, this is why I put this one before, and this is a blocker for this one, etc. So if you have this kind of clear documentation, and this is what I'm working a lot with my team also in terms of processes, very clearly defined, documented, and very transparent, right? It also helps what product team does, right? It's not like a black box and magically we decide to do something.
So really putting it out there, be very transparent, and then showing the facts, showing the metrics and how you have derived in that decision is truly important. You've already come very well prepared with your data, with all your documentation, and yet you might still feel some sort of imposter syndrome, especially if your environment has people who are perhaps older than you or of a different gender than you. How do you overcome that?
When you do very different change of career, once it's like arriving in e-commerce fashion, right? Big imposter syndrome. I had a background in finance, fintech. This was very front-end growth. I, was not so familiar with some of the analytical tools, etc. So really, how did I overcome that? The first 6 months is really a very, very steep learning curve, right? You really learn, take some time to learn about the different system, etc. And then little by little, it goes, but it's kind of stays with you at the beginning. If you start in a new company, it's a very different domain. It doesn't help. The thing is, I've done that quite a few times, so now I know it's part of the natural process of arriving, seeing new stakeholder, new challenge, new products, and it's okay, right, to not know everything as if you were in that sector since 10 years. But there are things you can reuse from your previous company. You can reuse some of the processes, you can reuse some of the, for instance, the agile, the way we run the sprints. You always bring experiences, right? So the more you build those experiences and you build your little luggage that you bring with you to the next step, right? You feel maybe a bit less of that imposter syndrome. So when I went in e-commerce fashion, then when I switched to stationery, right? And I was really focusing on the investment product. I never done pure investment product in my life, right? I was in M&A before, merger and acquisition. So it's a different part of the financial. So I also had to, catch up a lot. So I knew I was not there yet, right? I had to catch up a lot. But then you have to be confident in your ability to learn, right? And you have to know, okay, for 6 months, maybe I'm not going to travel so much, etc. But you're going to give the effort to get to that level. So that helped. And now lately for me, it's going into the management side, right? And sometimes you're like, oh, what am I, doing? Am I a good head of product or not? Or how can I help? And same thing, it's a learning journey. And you have to be really transparent with the people you work with. Also, you're saying, we're both here to learn. You're learning. I'm also learning. We all want to get there, right? How can we make it, together? And the idea is not to build like a fortress and be like, oh, I'm the best and try to hide behind. It's really to be honest and open up and say, okay, what do you think I could have done better, right, etc. So lots of retrospective, also personal and also with stakeholders. Do you have any feedback for me? How can I help you and things like that? Be really open.
I think you are somebody who has gone through, I would say in many people's eyes, very extreme transitions, because through different geographies and through different industries, and you are so bold to take these steps. And as you mentioned, you have kind of already like a set process or a way that you know works for you when you're first stepping into a new product domain and a new industry, a new company. What are some of the steps, if you could kind of list it down for us, that you will take to kind of establish your authority in this new domain?
So I mean, I'm not ready to write a book about it yet.
You should.
A few things, right? If you start in a new company, you have a few things you need to do. First of all, know your stakeholders, right? So, for instance, that's why I started remotely. I didn't meet any of my team physically before like 3 or 4 months, right? So you just do a lot of like little calls with everyone, try to understand their background, where they're from, what they do. Really like build your, mapping of stakeholders, right? Who do I need approval from? Who do I need to inform, right? So this is very important, right? And like each time you do like a new product also, it's very important. And then there is industry side, right? Okay, I went from like meeting like people in e-commerce, fashion, etc., to like really, personal finance, wealth tech, so very different. And for this, a few things you can do, right? It's like every day, for instance, keep like 30 minutes to read articles, and
Sorry, there's like dogs.
basically, few things you can read articles and set a bit of time every day. So what I used to do, I used to do that when I was in venture capital. It's like you can set up a feedly, for instance. So you set up your feedly, you select some of the blog sources you want to learn from, and then every day, you look at your article, you look at the best newsletters you can find on the domain. You can also try to meet people who work in that industry, right? That also helps. It was more difficult during COVID. No, it's the best time to do, right? Things are reopening, you can actually meet people. So that's how you can catch up on the sector side. And then there is a team, right? Then there is a sector, and then there is your product, right? How does that work? And Sasha was a good example of a very, I would say, more complex product, like web app and a lot of different layers of, between the front end and the back end, a lot of different teams. And for this, you have to do, first of all, a lot of readings, right? Try to read on all the different services, and when the documentation is not there, which happens quite often in startups, then you have to like talk to people, right? Sit down again. What I was sharing last time, right? You try to understand the different systems, how they work. Try to like do your own interpretation drawings. So even if it's not like a proper technical drawings, but you're like, okay, this works with this text data from here, this thing, and that's how you catch up on this, right? And for 2-3 weeks, right, you do a lot of this, like industry, people, and catching up on the product. And then, things start to put together. You start to see what are some of the issues you can solve, etc.
Stay tuned to the next video. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you.
And we see you next week. Bye.
Bye.